All right, we just wait for Coach Rick. Jump on. Man, say, bro, where you been at, dog? Coming through. Let's see. Keep accepting it. Don't wanna. There we go. Coach.
Yo, what up?
Oh, just getting ready. Getting ready. There we go.
It's a beautiful Friday.
Shit, it's 85 over here,
Well,
bro.
it's a little chilly over here in Northeast Ohio, so
Dude, it's like February and it's hot. I'm like, man, what the? Shit's crazy, bro.
I'm trying to get the short game
80,
dialed in for
80
golf
exactly.
season. Huh?
I said it's 80 exactly.
My body's not going to be ready next week when we go
Well,
down.
you're gonna get here and it's gonna be like 80, and then the next day it's gonna drop into like the 60s.
Okay, that's
So
a little bit better.
you're gonna be all
That's
right.
fine.
You're gonna be all
I'll take that.
right. Yeah, bro. Yeah.
The gym is always a test on your
Oh,
temperature control.
yeah.
It don't matter what time of the
It's
year.
got its own environment.
Ooh, man, it goes from an ice cube to a desert
Yeah.
in a second.
Quick, wet desert
Oh,
too. Hot and humid, but it's good, dude. The guys that come in and they do like all their summer work with us and all, like when they get to camp, like
it's
some
like hot. It's hot GOATA. It's like
yeah,
hot yoga, but it's hot
yeah.
GOATA.
There you go.
Helps you
Yeah,
get into the movements a little bit easier. But I mean, we could jump right in.
yeah,
We had a couple of questions that came across the desk. Um, One was regarding the knock knee versus the bow-legged athlete, and then the
yeah,
other one was dealing with a rounded sort of upper back thoracic area in like a child rockers or a bolt.
hmm
So I figured you've had a lot of experience with the knock knee and the bow-legged thing, even going back to Go to Joe. And then I think you probably see the knock knee thing a little bit more. We've noticed it a lot with the young ladies. A lot of volleyball athletes, or people that are kind of jumping
yeah,
a lot, or just kind of, as they would say, stuck in valgus, right?
yeah. A couple of So basically, what happens is on the female athlete, and it's we talked about it before. Tim Hewitt or whatever has the 6.2 tear ratio. He's the guy that figured that out, the biomechanics guy for the Mayo Clinic, and he kind of dedicated his life to that because I think he was in like the heart side of everything at first. But
Mm-hmm.
he's got 30 years of research, but so he coined the whole 6.2%. But they so what happens is it's in the female athlete, you'll see like the hips start to broaden. They'll start like their 10 through 12-year-old age because they broaden. It's the natural process, right? The birthing process and all that. They start to become a young lady and become a woman. So the hips open up, but everything's patterned inside of their normal columns. So as they mature, the pressure starts to open a little bit, and then that angle gets a little deeper into the knee,
Sure.
like the way that they handle the pressure. So if they don't have somebody there to say, hey, you need to make sure you're focusing on, and then you throw in the technology age and things like that, that 6.2 rate is probably climbing,
Right.
to where it's
That's a
getting
good point.
closer to 8 or something.
Yeah.
So what we do is we come in and we'll take them, and because what we would say is that they're actually stuck in the corner. So let me see if I could fix this a little bit. And if they run, what you see in the run is you see a landing that's it's almost like they land pre-corner. So they land inside like this already, and they may even be straight-footed or duck-footed. They typically not turned in. So what you see is this, and then just like we talk about in the ACL, they'll go inside ankle bone low, and the shin will lock in place. and then as you load pressure, that hip socket wants to go down and back, but it can't because it's stuck. So in a controlled environment, it's pretty safe. But you get into a volleyball game, and it's not safe, but it's not good because you're patterning bad. But you get in a volleyball game, and everybody's jumping, the ball's flying, grandma and grandpa's cheering in the stands. Next thing you know, a kid goes down for a ball. She goes pre-cornered, she tears her ACL, right? Whereas the guy don't necessarily have to deal with that all the time. So what we do is we got to get them out of the corner and get them stuck from in that pre-cornered position. So everything that we would do with that athlete would be bow work. So it starts on the ground because typically what happens is all of this side is all in compression too. Everything's stuck. Put in a little front chain up in there, and it's just a recipe for disaster. So we have to open and get it down. That's where you got to spend some time on the ground with them. The evaluation is always going to tell you the video is always going to tell us how bad or how severe it is. Typically, once we get that athlete into the groundwork and all, they instantly almost start to get some relief because the bow rockos start to line that system back up by itself. Now, on the corrective exercise part, we use some of the Egoscue column stuff or whatever. We've always said that, we've used some of his stuff. He's got the straps and all. And what I like to do with that athlete is I like to take not a rubber band. We never want to suffocate the bow. We want to give the bow an in range to work to where we could get the butt back, give them an in range that sets the ideal bow, straight feet inside ankle bone, high heels up. And we could play around with it on the wall to where they got some support and stuff like that. Once we get them decompressed, once we get them off the ground, once we get them from that, getting it long, we can realign and get it to stack properly, give them that in range to work to where the brain feels this is how far we want to go. We don't want to go past it, and we don't want to live here no more. And you'll start to see, along with like educating them and giving them some awareness, we could pull that athlete out of that position quick. Now, in the male athlete that comes in and they kind of stuck in the corner, some of them aren't. Like a lot of linemen will come in and they'll show the valgus shape because since they're 10 years old, they being taught this. They're being taught to load, so they take that pattern to that, and what they end up is they end up duck-footed, valgus shape, but external in the hip. Now it's a mess. So what's happening is they're stuck in a like this at the knee level. That stuff molds and it shapes the same way that we could bring it back. It works away from that system. So basically, it ends up like external, down and in the valgus shape. And they all start suffering with, some of them come in and they end up with like a patella tracking issue or whatever. Or they'll end up with the my bad. It would be like this. They end up with a patella tracking.
I was gonna say, that's a fibula.
And then it depends on the camera too. So they end up with a patella tracking issue where it tracks like this, and so we see that.
It's a good look at it.
They'll end up with meniscus damage because it's pinching the bushing in the meniscus. They could end up with some pain here. They could end up with Osgood because what happens too, they front chain dominant, right? So that quad's overactive. So this tendon is constantly being pulled, and they start to develop a tissue right here because the body thinks that it's going to tear. So it starts to, over time, and it looks like a callus on the inside, and it's sensitive. Sometimes they get nerves in them, and it becomes bad. So what we got to do with that guy is now we got to take and we got to almost like, you got to realign everything. So we would take him, and if he was in the corner, when he goes into the corner, we know the bottom's down and in already, so we have to block the bottom some kind of way. So we may use some type of padding or something like that to stop that shin from turning in and getting stuck down, because now we decompress him. We do a lot of bow rockers with him. We stop the shin from turning in, which is going to allow little bitty micro movements of those knees to start coming back and start bringing that shape back together. Or you could take and strap the top and work out to the bow to where you want to go narrow, though. You don't want to give them even the in range because they're stuck so far out. So putting them here, strapping them here, and then letting the shin start to work its way back into alignment. I got a kid. He's a month in. I got him cleaned up. I'm gonna do the post later, but this is that kid.
Yep.
That is that lineman, and that's typically the difference between the male and the female. But you just can't jump into this shit. Like, this is like years and years and years and years of, I don't even want to say error, because when you look at it from a perspective of common sense, or you look at it from a perspective of what makes sense, it's kind of like, forget that it's a person for a second. In line, and let's just think about like putting pieces back together of a puzzle.
Yeah.
You got the 3 joint segments, right? You have the foot, the shin, the thigh. Those 3 have to line up. They have to be in the columns, right angles, load-bearing joints. Anything outside of that, that athlete can't handle pressure. So you got to restore that. It's a process. That's why we say eval, eval, eval. Study the film. Study the film. Eval, eval, eval. Go after the low-hanging fruit. Look for the change. And as the change is being made, the athletes mentally locked in, you're educating them, you're giving them the tools they need, and typically we could solve the problem.
Yeah, it's a lot of just getting the shin and the thigh back on the same page. And I love the creativity of, hey, if my shin's already stuck down and in and I need my thigh, which is stuck out, to catch up, well, I can kind of get that during a cornering exercise. And then if I'm in the bow, well, I know the thigh stuck out and the shin stuck in, so you stop the thigh and you let the shin catch up. And all the while, we've been trying to hammer this one. You guys have probably seen this on some posts, and we'll continue to make good effort with cues and with feelings that are trying to match tape. Is we've got to be very active through the foot and through a very specific part of the foot, which would be that ball of the foot. So, that area sort of here, not just, outside, not just inside, literally across the whole ball of the foot, and being active to where you should feel like you're rooting down through the ball of the foot. And if you're rooting down through the ball of the foot across all 5 toes, you should feel this half dome arch start to present itself. You should feel the inner ankle bone naturally want to climb. You should feel the heel get lighter, and then you can just kind of accelerate that drive, accelerate those roots down into the ground, and take that inner ankle bone and that heel as high up as you need, dependent upon how big of a bow you're going to build. But I know you've cued that a lot, Gary, especially on the corners, right? We'll see people as they're starting to corner, the foot is almost getting sort of brought down and in with the cornering action, right? And it's almost like the same thing happens in the bow. People are starting to bow and they're taking the foot out with the bow action, where if you are active and you're rooting down through the ball of the foot, your foot can do that joystick type analogy where it can sit still. It can be that Atari joystick that's heavy, that's setting down on the table, allowing the shin to get its turns back. And that's a big part of like why when you're in the groundwork, you're in an upside down version of inside ankle bone high. So you're on the top part, the top skin, if you will, of the foot, but you're still really driving through the same area.
Chain. You got to close it.
You got to close the chain down through the foot. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
You got to be able to manage the pressure. But like what you're saying, where we driving through that ball and the other thing I say is drive the tailbone to the sky, because we got to constantly be decompressing the system because everything outside of here is compressing the system, right?
Yeah.
All the way from shoes to sitting to the car to whatever. So drive through the ball of the foot, drive the tailbone through the sky, and then you're still working rotation, because the higher the tailbone goes, the higher the corner. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's opening as it's happening. So you're opening new tissue, you're getting longer, you're getting stronger, you're spending time under tension, and you're also building that neurological side of the pressure point in the foot. And what you were saying about the ball of the foot, it has to be done through that ball, because the person that is duck-footed, inside ankle bone low, is pressurizing on a daily basis the heel, the inside edge of the foot, and they're not pressurizing where the system needs to be in order to pull a good bow in a good corner. So if you're walking around bad all the time, that's why you've done a hell of a job of getting everything like, hey man, here's a video for resting, here's a video for in between workouts and all of that stuff. And we're combining that in here. Like, we're not letting them walk around stupid. We making sure that they're following all the rules all the time. And then the thing is it becomes so that hour and a half that they spend it, every kid's in the app, every kid's got a regimen, every kid's doing evals, every kid, it's a little bit more money, but we're coding up like this. We're putting in the time and effort, we're getting better results. And then the kid don't need to do all of the other stuff. All he does is just keep repping out these things. It's the beautiful thing about GOATA, right? Is you could be 80 years old and walk GOATA. You don't have to pull a sled backwards. You don't have to go to the chiropractor. You don't have to do these things unless you choose to do them. We don't want you to be pushed by your problems. We want you to be able to go do whatever you want.
Right. It's a good point. Not feel like you have to constantly be taking this pill or constantly getting this shot or, finding yourself, these are just kind of, concepts, but finding yourself back on an operating table, knowing that you'll be back on an operating table, just that you're only kind of buying yourself a little bit of time. But I think that's a good point that Gary brings up about, I think people, you may be looking at GOATA, and in each exercise, like, doesn't matter what we're doing, they should all kind of look similar. They're kind of in the same archetype where at the foot level, the same thing's playing out and the same thing's playing out from tail to crown. But don't mistake that what looks to be stagnant and static for just like a stagnant and static type of feeling in the system. And what I mean by that is, that's why I've been putting out those posts where I'm saying, keep this playlist on repeat. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's like you're scanning the body from the foot to the fingertips to the crown, from the foot to the fingertips to the crown. And you're just constantly going through that playlist of cues, because what's going to happen early on is you'll get in all fours, you'll be in your child rockers, you'll be in something with the groundwork, you'll cue yourself to drive through the ball of the foot. Then you'll have to go to the tail and you'll reach your tail back. Then you'll go to the crown and you'll reach your crown forward. And then while you were taking your brain up to the tail and the crown, your foot forgot to stay magnetically charged through and active through the ball of the foot. So you got to go back down. So if you just keep the cues simple and you get them centered around this idea of being active. And so from the tail to the crown should almost feel like a tug of war. Feel like your tailbone is reaching back. Feel like your crown is reaching forward, and feel like they're almost like going opposite directions. So there's a nice like tug of war playing out between the tail and the crown, and it's staying that way throughout the whole exercise. And then the spine does its little spinal engine wave, which I did want to get into a little bit today. Same thing for the ball of the foot. Like, feel like you're driving down through the ball of the foot. Feel like you're active through the ball of the foot, not just to start the exercise, but all the way through the exercise, during the bow. If it's just a bow, you're holding that bow. If it's a bow corner flow, you're keeping that ball of the foot driving down as you're working the shin. So at the beginning, GOATA, when you first are presented to it, it seems like a big cloud of information. There's a lot of information to take in. But definitely know that as you work through that cloud, the sights start to get a little bit clearer and a little bit clearer. And as you work through it, it all just narrows down and you're like, oh, okay. And then it's very easy to almost snap your fingers and be into the exercise and be into the behavior as a whole, from the foot to the fingertips to the crown. And you can kind of feel how the whole system is integrated, and you're only really using those micro cues or that microscope on one area just to bring awareness back to it and just to kind of get it to join the rest of the carts on the train and get everything to move smoothly through that pattern, through that bow, through that corner. So just stay active, stay simple with your approach. Like I said, not every single cue will resonate with every single person, but big picture, you need to be active through the ball of your foot. You need to be active through the tail reaching back. You need to be active through the crown. And we always say, big picture, you're dealing with pressure. Big picture, you're dealing with pressure inside of a decompressed structure. In order to build a decompressed structure, you got to be inner ankle bone high, as we would say. From a definition, that would mean how you're organizing the foot compartment. And you've got to be back chain dominant, which from a definition standpoint, from a visual standpoint, would really be that tail to crown. That tail to crown, I may just be cueing what seems to be just my torso or just my spine, but by cueing the torso and the spine that way, that tail to crown, it then liberates the upper limb and the lower limb. And remember, we're never working in isolation. We're only trying to bring awareness to spots that have sort of gone dormant. And I need to kind of have a knock on the door, a little conversation, if you will, with that specific spot to bring it back to life. Then I can kind of loop it into the rest of the cues, and it's just much easier to find those positions and not waste reps. Like we said, we have people that are kind of like flaccid at the foot level. They're kind of just like teeter-tottering on their foot, either to the outside edge or like they're getting their foot up, but it's like every time that they really go to load pressure, it drops back down. They're not truly like inside ankle bone high and holding that platform strong. And then like the tail to crown is there, and then like as they go to move, it kind of crunches and it goes back. And then it goes here, and then it crunches and it goes back. So it's like you want to make sure that you're just staying active through those areas throughout not only the beginning of the rep, but all the way to the end of the rep.
Yeah. Somebody just asked about the tail to crown when you had mentioned it. They had a couple of questions. I'll answer them questions real quick. The hamstring stretch thing, we just kind of explained it to you. Whenever you work from your bow to your corner, you naturally you got to do all the decompression work that's involved in the but just if you just tighten your hamstrings or something like that, when you work your bow corner flow or you work your crawl up and back, you could start to do those things. That ball of the foot driving into the ground where the tailbone's pressing through the sky is a constant separation. So what's going to happen is if you're tight, as you go through that behavior, as you move from the bow into the corner, you're only going to be able to go so far, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why whenever you're doing these things, you want to make sure that you're getting some video, you're getting with a coach, or because you want that person to be there to say, okay, look, you're starting to drop the heel, or you're starting to go inside ankle bone low, or you're starting to shift out of the column, because that'll happen a lot of times where somebody's a little tight and they can't finish the corner, so they'll start to pull away from the column too soon or something like that. And what happens is they don't ever get the left back, because they basing everything off of what they feel and not what they see. And so you really want to be able to see that ankle. And that's the other thing too. You can't really open up the hamstring properly until the ankle's fully decompressed. And then the hips got to be decompressed. And then the knees got to just be in a hinge. And everything's got to be in alignment. So I've seen tight hamstrings because of a disorganized column. So, and you got to really go to find why why it's tight too. Like, it could be a number of different reasons. So, it's kind of, the question's very broad, like what to do with a tight hamstring. But get an eval trying to find out why first, I guess. And you can find a coach to do that. But somebody else asked, would we change our core aspects to make our system better? Well, that's why GOATA even exists right now, is because when Gilly brought these concepts to me, and Gilly showed me inside ankle bone high, and then, I had people that was buying into it and they were doing it and they were working with Gilly, but it was not until I realized and put the connection together that what I was doing was a big part of the problem. So I had to change my core aspects and just maybe my whole belief system. So if something came along that I don't know what could convince me at this point.
Well, so the definition would have to be, what are the core aspects? So you talk about the global laws?
That's what I'm imagining.
Like those are, let me answer that in a way that maybe makes it simpler, in the sense that GOATA is centered around the global laws. It's centered around assessing the global laws and correcting the global laws. That's what we're focused on. What we're trying to bring to your attention is that everything outside of that global laws is probably fluff. And you may have attached your ego to fluff, and that's okay, because we have all done that at some point or another. But when you start to attack the global laws and you start to make that your framework for working and correcting, you get the up levels and the goals matched that you were trying to get in the first place. So no, the global laws can't change is probably another way to say it, because we didn't create them. We didn't come up with tailback crown forward. It's what's observed. We didn't come up with inner ankle bone high. It's what's observed. We didn't come up with the bow and the corner. It's what's observed. We didn't come up with head inside the column. That's just what's observed. So those core tenets of what GOATA is, which is matching tape around those concepts, I really can't change them. Even, you know what I mean? Like, that's the whole funny part with when we see these detractors and these coaches that are trying to they're taking GOATA concepts, but they'll slightly bastardize them so that they can rename them and pretend like they're smart, when in reality, they're completely skipping or missing the point of what GOATA was, which was observation of something that's not created. And so when you got a coach telling you, well, it's actually this, and the video says different, you got coaches saying the chest is pointing this way while it's doing that. And it's like, not only is that not what's happening on the tape, but it's not even what's happening in the laws of movement, you know. And that's probably, I do want to talk about Spinal Engine, because I see people, they just love that one and they don't have a clue as to what it even is. They know, I'll ask people about Spinal Engine and then they won't even know what Fryette's laws are. And so it's like, you don't even understand the laws of the facet joints and how they're set to work, but you want to talk about Spinal Engine because it sounds cool.
Yeah.
And it creates disharmony in people's bodies, and it creates this, once again, everybody rushes back to, it's all about this or it's all about that, and they once again are just right back in isolation. The next thing you know, they're talking about lats, and it's like they got right back into one muscle, and they're just trying to work one muscle. They're trying to work one aspect of it because they don't even know that they're actually in the process of studying it as a whole. And, you know, I've even gone through this with you before, Gary, where you're like, you know, don't get fixated on one piece of it. It's not just one piece. It's all those global laws, you know, as a synergy working together to harmonize a full system from the head to the toe to the fingertips. So I guess to answer your question, like, the core tenets are the global laws. So those would never change. You know, exercises have changed. I guess that's changed.
Yeah. The way that I know what happens is because, like, and we've been confronted with it this week, right? Like, we've had some posts, and I want you to dig into that spine thing too. But
yeah, we'll get to it.
But like, what people need to understand is so, you know, when a scientist comes to our page, right? Because of the way that it's been told to them and taught to them that they come up with answers or solutions or what they would call their global laws, maybe, is that, one, I think everybody would agree that the body's been dissected, taken apart, and looked at and said, okay, this does this does that does this. And then you could take 10 different bodies and everything could be different, right? So what they do is they don't really know. So they'll take 100 people and go try something. And then if 80% of them come up with something, that becomes their global law. They never took and looked at anything. In the ridiculousness of it, and I know it's academia and it's been broken down and it's 100 years and this is how it is, and when they say that's how it is, but it's almost like this. It's almost like I took 100 people, okay, and I said, we're going to go out to the freeway and we're going to run across the street. Okay, and there's traffic passing, there's cars zooming by and all of this stuff. And 85 of them get hit by a car. Well, we don't cross the street whenever they got traffic, right? Like, we can see that because, but we came in and we said, they got a car flying through here. I'm not even going to try that to find out the truth. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's obvious that it's not smart to do it. So when we go back and we look at the tape and we look at the film and we say, okay, well, wait, the ACL tear happens like this, but so does the clean. And the clean's done in a controlled environment. In the ACL tear, okay, well, I'm not going to do it that way no more because it's in alignment with the injury. Mm-hmm. That's science. Yeah. Like, that's the difference between what we did and what the scientists did, and they tell us we crazy.
Yeah.
Like, so when you go back and you say, okay, let's go back to the crossing the street, if they would have took and had a camera, if they would have had the technology to look at it from the front, the back, the sides, an aerial view, and back up, everything would have been different at that point. And they would have took these guys that's super highly intelligent and super, but the thing is they only know how to do a study. That's all they've been dictated to the whole time. And then you take years and years and years of all of these, because what happens is they go back and I guarantee you somewhere somebody's doing something right now and they basing something off of what, like, people come to us all the time, let's do the study. Why would we do a study to cross the street because it's that plain and obvious when you look at it. It is
Mm-hmm.
the crossing the street example.
Mm-hmm.
It is the getting hit by a car. I don't, if me and you, if you're a scientist and I'm not, and you say, Gary, I'm going to go ahead and test this theory, and you run across the street and get hit by a car, I'm not that stupid. I'm not going to be the next guy up. I'm
Right.
just going to say, I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
That's good enough for me, you know? But, you know, somebody just said there's more money, and yeah, money's a big thing all the time.
It's,
go ahead.
yeah, there's just, no, I mean, to kind of piggyback what you're saying, there's a lot of issues with studies. I was talking to a coach the other day, and I think one of the bigger concepts, big picture, is norms versus ideals, right? We get used to the norms of our society, and so we accept them as facts, as opposed to actually sifting through the norms to say, wait, what is ideal? What is the set way? What would be a designed way? And what would be something that would operate with a binary system, zeros, ones, lefts, rights, goods, bads. That's how everything else works. For whatever reason, you got to the musculoskeletal system, and it just was, they studied it differently, you know, and my thought process on it, my theory on it is that the thing that the musculoskeletal system is moving is not easily seen. You can only see it operate through the system, and you could only see it operating through the system frame by frame. And that thing that I'm talking about is pressure. Mm-hmm. The cardiovascular system, it's obvious. It's the blood. So now I can have that cadaver approach, which is important. We do look underneath the hood. We study which, you know, what the bones look like. We've studied how things are set up. We've studied how the Achilles is sewn. So we are taking a cadaver approach, but we're not only taking a cadaver approach, and it's not the first approach. We first observe, then we go and look underneath the hood. But with the cardiovascular, I think the reason that they found it to be a cycle, and they look at it as an integrated system moving something through a cycle, is because, well, you could touch and see the blood. So you can actually see the thing that's moving through the system. Digestive, right? It's good to look at all those pieces in a cadaver to kind of mark them and talk about them and learn a little bit about them. But they also can observe the food. It's obvious. We can see it. It's much easier and much more conceptual to think that way with those couple systems. In other systems like pulmonary, you see the lungs expand. It makes sense. With the musculoskeletal, if you're only looking at it or not looking at it in slow motion, or you're only looking at it in slow motion side view, you don't really take into account that thing that it's moving, which is the pressure. That's where the front view and the back view started to change things, was as you're watching a front view frame by frame and you watch the foot touch down, you're watching the pressure bottleneck up. You're not necessarily watching the pressure, you're watching the musculoskeletal system react to the pressure. And when you're doing that over and over and over again, and you're looking at a wide range of the population, not only our Western society, but indigenous societies, children, the centenarians, the 100-year-olds, you're looking at all these different things and you're asking that question. You're now putting that extra piece on the table, which is pressure. Well, now you got a whole new study to take apart in. And that, I think, is a big problem with studying the musculoskeletal system, is they're not looking at how it's reacting to pressure. They're just looking at ranges of motion. So when you take a dead body, you put it on a table, we've talked about this a million times, and you're just moving it, you're moving it. You're moving it. It doesn't have pressure coursing through it. That you can't learn about movement that way. You can't build a map off of flexion, extension, abduction, adduction. You can't do that. As it pertains to building a holistic, integrated system that is simple to identify and understand and translate and then get somebody fixed through. So that's why it doesn't work, because when you go into your PT or when you go into your strength coach, they're strengthening isolated concepts. Mm-hmm. They didn't take the isolated concept and then say, okay, that's all good and dandy that it moves this way, but what about when pressure is coursing through the system? What's the organization there, right? What is the healthy blood pressure of the musculoskeletal system? That's what GOATA is saying. There is a healthy blood pressure to the musculoskeletal system. We identified it. When it is healthy, it's inner ankle bone high, it's bow, it's corner, head floats into the column, and all those things are there. That's what's different about this study than the other studies. The other part that they don't like is that, no, it didn't take place at MIT or at Harvard. It was down in New Orleans. scraping video off of fucking YouTube. And that irks people.
Yeah.
Like, it bothers people that it's Gilly Bosch, a license plate salesman, and it's Gary Scheffler, a reformed drug addict. They don't like that.
Yeah.
They do not like that. They don't like a dude talking to them in Cajun. They don't like a dude with a little bit of swagger and a little chip on his shoulder. They don't like that. You know why I know they don't like that? Because they're fucking nerds. And nerds don't like getting stuffed in the locker. And that's what we're doing to you, is we're stuffing you in the locker, and you don't like that, and you're getting a little bullied, and it's uncomfortable, and it makes you mad, and you're just like, you're trying to find one way to make GOATA not right. And the problem is, if you try to prove GOATA wrong, you'll prove it right every single time, because GOATA and WOTA are just constantly being confirmed, because it's not up to us. It's up to observation. So we leave it there, and we let observation tell the story. And so it's a lot of things that need to be changed. So what I think it will be is a 50-50, then a 60-40, then a 70-30, then an 80-20, then a 90-10. Then it's like, yeah, of course it bows and corners.
Yeah,
duh.
right.
Harvard said, they'll fucking study it. They'll come around 30 years later.
It's funny because a lot of the movement people out there that came before us are adopting it to a certain level.
Yeah.
Like the question, would you change your core principles? They're not willing to do that.
Yeah.
But, well, we're going to use the go to feet part.
Yeah,
we're
just
going to say bow and corner now. When 6 months before you were saying big toe and the tendon on the big toe. Well,
remember they were saying bows and corners were
on
fake.
A regular basis.
Yeah.
It's turf toe.
They were saying
like
bows and corners were fake. It went from fake to like, well, no, it's actually real, to like, then some people are like, well, it's a byproduct of, it's funny. You're just letting them make their excuses. Let them go ahead, do your runaround, like rationalize it however you want to. Those that are walking in with an empty cup, they're walking in with an empty cup because of their personal experiences. And they're usually it's their personal pain, their personal injuries. We hear it. I mean, we're going to see it again when we go to lab weekend. I hear it all the time when I'm on the phone with coaches. They hurt themselves and they couldn't find answers, so they found GOATA. That's usually the story. That's usually the story. So, I hate to see an athlete have to go through an injury, but a lot of times that's part of it.
It's not even about
part of the problem.
That's not even a sports world thing. That's a behavioral problem.
Yeah.
Listen, I got to bump my head, dude. I'm going to probably bump it somewhere else today. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how people learn. So it's like, unfortunately, it's an ACL sometimes, or they got to do. I mean, look at how many people that we've worked with that's come in and they're like, man, I feel great. And then the next thing you know, they back out there. I seen one of them today, and it's like, dude, GOATA, you know what to do. I do virtual stuff, but you're doing hip thrusting exercises on the side. But yet you just come off of a groin injury that you had to come back to me for. So it's like, we don't learn our lessons as human beings the right way, and we don't do what's best for us. We do what we want to do most of the time. So it's more behavioral, I think, in that aspect than harm. But then when the big one comes, you know what I'm saying? When the big one comes, and then it's like, man, I got to only do this. I got to only do this. And then they get a little bit further. It's the drug dealer. It's the guy that keeps getting away with shit. He's going to keep going until he does have the big one.
Yeah.
That's just a personality thing.
Well, I mean, I tell people in 2015, I was teaching Olympic lifting down at a high school in Jacksonville. I mean, that was just 2015. You were doing it too. I was doing hip thrust based exercises. I was doing core work. I was doing all those things. I mean, don't mistake us as people that just woke up one day and said, man, I woke up with a passion for movement. Like, these are things that took a decade to sort of, snowball, in a sense that, for me personally, I didn't start studying this. I started studying it really 2010, 2011 with the need to fix my own movement errors as a quarterback, which was around the throw. And then, like, slowly over time, if somebody would have maybe brought GOATA to me in 2010, 2011, I might have said that's stupid. So I know that now that person that's coming to the page is probably me from 2010, 2011.
And I
I need to understand that.
Consideration a lot of times, and and we had to adjust the way we handle things and like being fully accountable. We had to change the way that we addressed a lot of situations because we were being, you know, like we expected people to. It's like you got something and you want the world to have it because of the experiences that you have with. And you're trying to give it to them, and they just so reject it. And now it's like you see the types, like almost like they come in and they got 6 or 8 years, they got degrees, and they say it like, "Where's the studies? I got a degree in this. What's your degree? What's your background?" Well, I don't have a background, thank God, because I'd probably be in your shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have no education. Like you could probably hear it when I talk. Like it comes out. My sentence is jacked up. But the video made a lot of sense to me, and my heart was always in the right place because I care about people that do come through the doors. So, well,
let's transition to a concept. So I did want to talk about Spinal Engine because I do get that question a lot, and it's a big one.
And a lot of people are talking about it right now too.
A lot of people are talking about it, and the first thing I would say to really get you to get it is it's not a big deal. Like the cues centered around getting into those positions don't have to be crazy, and you're really already doing it. Like we talk about tail back, crown forward, chest points out with the kneecap. Like that's literally all you need. But from a science standpoint, like from a what's happening standpoint, I would first look at Fryette's second law. So what it's showing you is that if you look at the spine as sort of like a flexible rod, right? It has all this capability, right? And when they mark it on a single plane, single range, you're looking at flexion, extension, lateral flexion each way, and you're looking at sort of rotation. So there's always going to be a multiplanar work that's playing out to create a spiral. So the same down, back, and out that we talk about with the shin, the same down, back, and out that we talk about with the thigh, it needs to play out inside the spine. So like as you're looking at me here, if I was to be loading up this side of my body, I would actually be, as they would call it, because you're going to have a multiplanar turn here. So there's going to be 3 things happening. You would be in flexion, you'd be in lateral flexion, and you'd be a little bit rotated. The sum total is that your chest is pointing out 22.5 degrees, your head's in the column, the tail's back, the crown is forward, and there's a bow set. But if you're really looking for the detailed sort of science of the facet joints, it would be flexion and side bend with a little rotation. Then it's going to be extension and side bend to the other side. So that would sort of be the breadth, if you will, of the torso as it's going through its bow and its corner. So it would translate, the torso would go down, back, and out, and it's going down, back, and out because you have a little bit of posterior tilt, you have a little bit of flexion, you have a little bit of lateral flexion, you have a little bit of rotation. All together, let's just call it a bow. Otherwise, we're trying to add all these TION words together, and it would get like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It would get out of control. So we call it a bow because it's a down, back, and out turn. So Fryette's second law is saying you bend it once, you bend it twice, the chest points out, right? So that's flexion or extension. So if I flex and side bend to the left, the chest will point out to the left. If I extend and side bend to the left, the chest will point out to the left. So what happens is you've got this flexion, you've got this lateral flexion, you've got this turn. All together, it's down, back, and out with the torso. That would be this for your bow, and then it would extend and side bend to the other side. And then once you're over on the other side, now it flexes, and there's your side bend that's already there. Chest points out. Now you extend and side bend over to the other side. So that would be sort of the breadth, if you will, of the spinal engine, where it would be flexion, side bend over here, extension, side bend over here, flexion, side bend over here, extension, side bend over here. And the reason I think that needs to be addressed is because there's this concept out there where it's like spine initiates movement. The hilarity of that is if you take the time to look at the embryological perspective, or if you even did read Spinal Engine, which I know they didn't, the book was probably too expensive for them. If you actually did look at Spinal Engine, and I know that Grakovetsky comes from, look, whether you believe in creation or you believe in evolution, either way you're coming to the same conclusion of what you're observing in space right now as a human body moves. So either way, however you want to look at it, but one of the things that Grakovetsky said was the spine grew limbs, because the spine in and of itself would not be enough to propel us. Obviously, we would need these limbs to kind of empower it and create pivot points on the land. However you want to look at it, I believe it's created, but if you're looking at it from an evolution standpoint, it would still come to the same conclusion, which I've always thought was pretty cool. But nonetheless, if you look now at Philip Beach's work in Muscles and Meridians, is that he's showing you that the torso develops first and that the limb buds spiral out from the torso. So the same cells that are compiled in the torso then work through to the limbs. So the limbs are the torso are the limbs. So nothing's initiating anything. It's all working together.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm trying to get across to people. And I
from
think
a seed, it's just like a plant.
Yes, like it's all the same shit.
Yeah.
It's all the same stuff, like growing out and being integrated together. So you're not initiating anything from anywhere. You're integrating everything from everywhere. Okay. Yeah. And so that's a huge distinction, because when you start to think with just your torso, or just to move with just your torso, you create disharmony. When you think with just your bow and your leg and not the upper half, you create disharmony. You can't let that happen to the system. And that's why, going back to the beginning of this, when I was saying loop the cues, keep the playlist on repeat, because you're going to need to keep integrating the whole system throughout the rep. You're going to keep needing to drive down through the ball of the foot and up through the heel and back through the tail and forward through the crown, just to keep that decompressed system as you're going. Because when you load up, the whole column from your shin up through your thigh into the torso, out into the upper limb, it's all moving spiral staircase down, back, and out. Then it just retraces its steps to transfer, and it comes up, around, and in. And the whole column works together. And if you watch it frame by frame, you'll see the arm, the spine, the thigh, all working and snapping together. It's not going to be chest moves, arms stay here, and then the arms come. Like, think about what you're saying when you're saying the spine initiates movement. It makes zero sense. Now you're saying one thing moves here, and that one stays, and then that one catches up. That's not a wave. That's not how a wave works. That's not how a torus works, a toroidal shape works. That's not how vortexes play out. They're an integrated wave, all working together like a whip. And like a whiplash, in a sense, you load up this whole column like a catapult, and then you take that whole column and you send it around the corner in a spiral. So don't get stuck on isolated concepts. Don't let them drag you back into that world. It's so difficult to claw your way out of it and to see integrated systems, because that's why we have an institute, because it takes time for you to look at film. It takes time for your eyes to really conceptualize what's going on at the foot and the shin. But while you're taking your time to learn about the foot and the shin, because your eyes work that way, you've got to hyper focus on it. You don't even get to see the top half of the body to start. But then you got to look at that so much that you can kind of see that out of the corner of your eye as you start to see the thigh play. And then you're seeing the whole leg and the foot as one thing. And then your eye is starting to work into the torso. And then you're starting to see the upper limb. And for a little bit, you've just now at least seen one side of the body working in harmony. And then you bring the other puzzle piece together and you see it work in harmony. But it will take time for your eyes to be able to truly see the pattern. People rush into slow motion video as if it's just some skill that you can learn on the snap of a fingers. It takes time. Like, I feel that I was able to speed up only because I played quarterback, only because from the 8th grade, I was frame by framing VHS tape in my room of upcoming opponents. Frame by frame, like, y'all don't get it. Like, frame by frame is a skill set. I used to watch my coach, Coach O'Keefe, and he would literally couple frames back, couple frames forward, couple frames back, couple frames forward. And he'd watch all 22 players on the field in every single play. Mm-hmm. So we had to watch the center's first few steps. We had to watch the left guard's first few steps. And we would all just sit there like, holy. But then we realized as we became sophomores and juniors and seniors, then I had the freshmen and the sophomores behind me, and I was going frame by frame. And I'm like, hey, watch this corner's hips on this first move. You see it? And the freshman's like, I don't see it. And it's like, I get why he can't see it. He's not even looking at it. He doesn't. Yeah. He's watching football like my mom's watching football. Yeah, right. They're not really watching the details of the movement. So, like, give yourself time to see it, because you will have to micro focus on the foot and just what the foot's doing. And then you'll have to go back to a book and you'll have to Google image. What the hell's a talus? What's a navicular? What's the cuboid? And you'll have to build an image in your brain of that. Then you'll have to be able to take that image and overlay it onto the tape. And then you'll have to see the shin, and you'll have to really get good at. I've got coaches that come in and like, how do I use my thumb? Like, they can't get their thumb, the dexterity of their thumb, to be slow enough to pinch. And what I think that they're doing is like, they're like picking their thumb up. you almost need to get your thumb there and like roll your thumb like
Yeah.
this along the thing. It's a skill set.
It really
If you want to get really good at watching slow motion tape, watch it frame by frame in your photo library in Apple, because it's not as good as like an on-form where it actually gives you the clicks and you can get sort of like a shock back to the finger that lets you know you went one frame.
Mm-hmm.
But until you learn to go frame by frame, and we do this at Lab Weekend, we try to show them like, hey, do you notice how that bow was probably like 3 frames? And then that corner was 2. So it's like the bow is a little bit longer than the corner. It's like, for the beginning of this, a lot of people, they can't differentiate the bow from the corner because it is like a wave in the ocean. It's just this one cascading movement, essentially. They're like, wait, when was the bow? When was the corner? When was the max absorption of pressure? That will all take time to dial in for yourself. So you have to give yourself time to conceptualize the global laws. They won't just snap. It won't be a snap of your finger and they'll show them to you. And that was what, Gilly, he would always say that. Go back, watch tape. Go watch again. Watch this clip. Watch it again. Watch it again. Watch that Ed Reed clip a million times, right?
Superimpose. Don't just watch it from.
Zoom it in. Zoom it out. Zoom it in. Like I tell our coaches that, like zoom in on a micro, like grab the foot and the shin, zoom back out. See the big thing. Zoom back in, foot, shin, thigh, zoom back out. Zoom back in, foot, shin, thigh, torso, zoom back out. Zoom back in, foot, shin, thigh, torso, upper limb, and then you're just like doing this with, and it's a lot of tedious work. It's a new skill set for the industry.
I think what happens too a lot of times, and people get a misunderstanding of what we're saying or what we're doing, because a lot of times, and it's all done in good intention, but it don't always turn out to be good, is that we, a coach will come to Lab Weekend and we up there and we teaching, mostly you, and you're going through all of this stuff, and then it's like we'll explain something, we'll teach something, and then instead of them going out and executing and taking and developing the skill set and working their clients, they want to take the social media and go try to teach what they learned in that weekend without fully having done. They didn't read Philip Beach. They didn't go through all of that Spinal Engine stuff. They didn't go through this.
Time.
When it's proper preparation prevents piss poor performance, right? It's the 5 P's. So what happens is when you've been studying and you've been looking and you've been going, well, man, let me go look at the Taylors. Let me go look at it. Not one picture of it. Let me go look at how 10 different people display it. Go look at what this guy's saying. Look what that guy's saying. And then you go look at Ed Reed. The study that was done on the Taylors or in the landing pattern before was never done on Michael Jordan, Ed Reed, Simone Biles. It was done on just 100 people, like 100 regular old people.
In this society, in this norm. Yeah, and the norm is crooked foot.
Western civilization. Right. Go back to where you was talking about the embryo. Like you go to babies born. Where's the most natural form of human movement? It's got to be in the indigenous, because they don't have nothing else except nature. They have it. And it's like people come in and they've been stuck in these, and the coaches come in and they trying to grab it. They know that GOATA help them. They know it's good. They know they feel better. And then it's like, instead of going back and continuing that journey, they want to teach and they want to show you and they want to say it, because they want to be the, everybody wants to
be the man.
A lot of us wants to be the guy, but like, listen, man, people don't understand the obsession, the psycho side of us when it comes to all of this stuff. In the time that we put in, and somebody finds us on a post and goes, "That's the stupidest shit I ever heard of."
Yeah.
Well, of course it is, because you didn't do no homework.
Right.
You got the wrong information.
Yeah.
And then when we say,
you watch TV at night.
So what, dude? They got murderers and killers out there with degrees. It don't mean they right. They got all kinds. Like, a degree don't qualify. Dunking a basketball does not qualify you as someone who knows. It just means you're athletic enough to dunk a basketball. Or you're taller than the rest of the population.
And like, that's one of it. That was my secret.
Right. It don't mean nothing. Somebody, one of the comments, bro, honestly, if you want joint health, lose some weight. like, I don't know if I didn't take it as directed, but like they got little girls that are 10 years old that weigh fucking 60 pounds and they tear
Yeah, that's
ACL.
kind of that's not enough. That's bad science. Like that's not good science because we've had really skinny people in valgus. We've had really skinny people in valgus that, or whatever you want to call it, inside ankle bone low, and they got tons of joint pain. I've had heavy people in joint pain. So it's
we
like
got
it's
big
not
guys
that's
that
not
don't
the
have
under
no joint pain.
that's not the root problem is what we say. It's kind of like, well, when people come in like, well, I have shin splints and he's got plantar fasciitis, so we're different. It's like, no, both of you don't have a bow. You both don't have a bow. Like that's the issue that's being
It's
centered around it.
And you saying that, Rick, is going to answer. It's going to kind of, if a client is presenting disharmony both upper body and lower body, so having the concept of body as a whole system, what should be the priority to work on this client? What Rick just said about if he has
it's all integrated,
or if he has plantar fasciitis, it's a compression issue first. Something is short. Something's closed up. The ankle behavior creates the compression. And then the other thing with the spine is when the spine is at risk, the nervous system is going to try to shut the body down. So you get a tight hamstring, you get a tight lower back. The reason why the spine gets damaged or something else, other joint gets damaged, is because we don't stop and get it corrected. The answer to the question is open the system up, open it up. That's why we drive through the foot and up through the tail. Even once we open it up on the ground, we're still continuing. Everything that we do is in a closed chain environment. The groundwork is closed. Now, we have people that come in. I have people that come in every day, 60, 70 years old. I start at 8 in the morning. I work till 9 o'clock at night, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And all I'm doing is working with mostly Gen Pop at those times. A few pro athletes and stuff like that. But the first thing that I do, if somebody comes in and they in sciatic pain and they can't walk, is I put them on their back and I open them up the best I can in a passive way. And I use egoscue towers, or I use some type of method to where then I could get them on the ground, get them into the hip stretches, get them into these child rockets, and I never got to go back to that tool again. But opening that system up has to happen first. If I have something that's supposed to be this long and it's this short, and I start bowing and cornering, all I'm doing is creating better behavior on a bad system. I have to open it up, get that talus to sit up, get a little space in the knee, open that hip capsule up, get it as long as possible, and then reprogram the load. Once you reprogram the load and you reprogram the pressure point in the foot, then the body won't resort back to the old way because you taught it how to behave new. Once you get it there and you keep it there and you keep that repetition, don't go back and go Olympic lift and do the thing that got you there. Go back and do the wall sit. Go back and do the unsupported work and stuff like that. Like the consistency, like this is it. Like, I tell a lot of people, like, you can't go back. Do you want to do it? If you love it, go do it. But do it under the consciousness that you're going to possibly have a problem, or that you could resort back to where you was, or you're going to have to double down on your GOATA. We're not saying Mark Bell and them do it. They feel better. You know what I'm saying? They lifting, they body work lift, they doing lifting every day. But it don't mean that he still deals with the shoulder every now and then. He still deals with the hip every now and then because he hasn't given his body the months that it may take to open up a system that's had 1,000 pounds on its back for years and years and years. Like, you could do GOATA right away and get a great stimulus and feel good immediately almost. But keeping that feeling and keeping that takes consistency. The old lady that I've been working with, the 70-year-old, she calls me up the other day. She's like, I'm not going to be able to make it. My back's bothering me. I'm like, you did your stretches yet? No, I was at the doctor for 3 hours this morning. He left me sitting in the waiting room. I'm like, Miss Melanie, get on the ground, do your groundwork, and call me back when you finish and tell me how you feel. She's like, Gary, I feel brand new. And I'm like, yeah, the secret is not that you came to the visit and did it with me. The key is to be consistent and constantly do this. I gave you a regimen that now you can go watch your grandson play football. I gave you the ability to go do that. but you 70. Like if the person that's 40, that's been
You're
in
gonna have
back
to
pain
keep doing it.
you gotta be
You're too
consistent with
far.
these
You're
things.
too far wotified to just
Way
think
too
that you're
far.
gonna get out of it in 3 months. That's another. Like, remember, like you're gonna find yourself in a chair. Like if we talk about that GOATA WOTA spectrum, and you have a GOATA end, you have a WOTA end. The indigenous cultures were important. The children were important in the study because we get to see someone that's usually not interacting with too many WOTA stimulus. Like a Karubo tribesman, a Yanomami, a Zoe, almost no WOTA is going to be put into that system. So largely the whole population just stays on the GOATA end. Makes sense.
Yeah.
The baby's pretty close. They don't sit in a chair like you and I sit in a chair because they don't do that until we tell them to do that, right? They like to sit in Seiza, they sit in Cowboy, they sit in crisscross applesauce, and then either they get too big for the chair or we tell them, hey, sit on your butt and put your feet down.
Yeah.
But they're usually moving around more. They're on the ground more, depending on what shoes and clothes. Your kid has a better chance, usually, or should, to stay a little bit closer to GOATA, not to mention you come out of the womb that way or should come out of the womb that way. So, now you start to get older. As you get older, more and more WOTA inputs get put into this sort of day-to-day. As you're interacting with that WOTA, well, it's pulling you from GOATA. It's pulling you from GOATA. It's pulling you from GOATA. And then your subconscious is somewhere over here where now you've kind of slipped over that tripwire and now you're closer to WOTA. So like the older you get, the more difficult it is to sort of wire and untangle that cord of WOTA that's wrapped itself around your system. So the first thing you have to do is have patience with yourself. I don't think enough people have patience with themselves because it's a buy now generation. It's a click now. And I understand it's a take a pill, it's a shot, it's a surgery. So we think like snap our fingers and you're just going to be back to GOATA again. But the older you are, the more you have to have something in your back pocket essentially to give you that relief after that 2-hour plane ride or that, 6-hour car ride to go visit your family or whatever it may be. I'm almost certain that something is going to present itself that's going to make you go, dang it, 2 weeks ago I felt great. What the heck's going on? My back's bothering me again. That's the great thing about having these simple cues in your back pocket, having these simple groundwork routines that you could hit really anywhere on the fly so that you can always return back to all fours. I try to get people to do that on a day-to-day. If you just get back to all fours, tuck the inner ankle bones high and just kind of push back into some rockers, sometimes you'll notice a couple clicks and pops and you'll kind of get like just a little bit of immediate relief because you just haven't gone into that position. Like we don't think about the fact that that child, that indigenous culture, that group that's out in the wild, that's a fact of life. The chair isn't a fact of life. The 6-hour car ride, the plane ride, the sitting at the bar, the sitting at the restaurant, those aren't facts of life. They're facts of life for us to live a normal life in a sense that looks sort of, don't be the one that stands out. Don't be the weirdo. Don't be the weirdo, right? But for them, it's like cowboy and resting postures and walking inner ankle bone high, back chain dominant through a crowded forest that isn't paved with landscapes where you get to walk in your Air Maxes or paved with sidewalks. They're just not getting saturated with what you're getting saturated with. So there's always going to be probably a little bit of, especially for our Gen Pops I'm talking to right now, my 9-to-5ers, that their life isn't sports right now. They don't get to not have to worry about bills. They don't get to not have to worry about making money. Like young athletes, generally, like you could sit on the ground for the majority of your day. Like you could be disciplined in a different way than the 35-year-old that's got to go to work and put on a suit and put on these certain shoes. So that's why you have these little, groundwork routines that you can pop back into. You have these little ways, feet close, feet straight, eggshell heels, these little things to think about in your standing and in your walking. And that's the coolest part about GOATA is that it's global laws that are sort of one size fits all, but how much of it you need is case dependent. If I'm a 9-to-5er and I don't like to work out and I don't really care about it, but I don't want to have this back pain, I don't want to have this knee pain, it could be as simple as groundwork 101, groundwork 102 with some healthier standing and walking habits. And that's it. Because you're not going to ask yourself to go jog. You're not going to ask yourself to cut juke and jump down at the local Y. You're not going to be putting yourself in crazy reactionary situations where you'll need more ability to bow and corner. But if you are that high-level athlete, if you're that high school athlete, if you're that weekend warrior, if you're a pro, and you are going to be in reactionary environments, you are going to be where the pressure cooker is much bigger, and now that bow has to be bigger, and now it has to be stronger at the foot level, well, the system can progress you to where you get to go and you get to challenge that. But each person feels good. They feel healthy depending upon whatever task they need to get done throughout that day. For some people, it might be playing in an NFL game. For the other person, it might just be getting up and down the stairs and getting out to the driveway to take the garbage out and get their mail. So the global laws work for everybody. That's the coolest part about
it. My wife, she just sent me something. She knows I'm on the live, but they had.
Is she on here?
They had no. She sent them to my phone. She must have ran across one of them memes.
They're great, man.
The Slim Scheffler one.
The Slim Scheffler is probably my favorite.
Bro, them dudes are funny, bro. I laugh my ass off. I'm in a group chat with them. This is a crazy thing, and I sit there and go back and forth. But no, man, I'm trying to get to the house or whatever, and today I'm finished. I got out of here early. I got Irv's on vacation. Jameis is on vacation. They happen to, Mardi Gras was this week, so everybody kind of left.
Yeah.
Went through that thing over there. Anybody that's from here, been around here, they get out of town right now. They know nothing.
They know the chaos is there.
Traffic is horrible. Like, you can't go across the railroad.
Dude, I'm ready for crawfish. I've been thinking about it.
Listen,
it's been haunting my dreams.
Ready for you. They pop, and so
we're gonna get spicy, right?
We'll get them on.
We're gonna get the
I don't know,
spicy ones.
We don't have them no other way, Rick.
That's right. Spicy crawfish and some Coors Lights. That's what I'm talking about.
You can have all the beer you want.
Yeah, I know. Anybody got any questions or anything? Like we said, drop a question on a post. Like, just drop it randomly on any post.
Put it in there.
It don't have to be case specific or anything like that.
Too. Y'all can inbox us or whatever. The Zurich event. Last time they had the Zurich thing, I think it was the last one or the one before that. I had that's when Bubba Watson came to see me.
Oh, yeah.
I did his eval.
That's right. The Zurich.
Better get that knee's in trouble.
But to answer your question, no, we don't generally go to the Zurich. But
come through, man.
Go to the lab.
Come to the gym. Come check us out, dude. We here. Come take your little tour or whatever. And
it's always good to get down to the lab. But yeah, no, to kind of quickly plug some products. So right now the Institute is $9.99. So the price dropped back down. It's $9.99, and you'll get 6 months on our GOATA app. So GOATAinstitute.com is where the education sits. Yeah. So you get a login, you get a password, you get to watch all those videos. You'll have those for life. There's about 40 plus videos and PDFs that are, when you're done with that, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, I can now start to correct myself and correct my clients. I got an idea how to assess. I know what these global laws are. I've got this app that's gonna work for you. So the app is its own thing. You'll go to the App Store to get it. You'll be able to invite all your clients in. You'll be able to hand out some simple education. You'll be able to hand out some simple lifestyle and recode tips, simple reminders. Basically, a lot of the stuff that you would probably feel like you have to sit there and explain over and over again, you can explain it one time to them, and then they have a reference point now with the GOATA app. Like Gary says in the gym, kid will come in, he gets an eval. You give them this, day one install of a ton of stuff, and the next thing you know, they're like, whoa, what did he just say? Well, now they've got an app to refer back to. So the app's great for education with your clients, and then you can build them out little regimens and stuff like that. Recode 225 is going to always have a 50% off your first purchase. So up until the end of February, it's going to be Feb 50. Once February is done, we will then change it to start 50. So we'll obviously keep you guys posted in the stories and stuff like that. But just know that your first purchase on Recode 225 will be 50% off. So if you ever have a question about what the code is going to be, just reach out to us and we can get that answered for you. You can access all of our products through Recode or through GoToMovement.com. So you get on GoToMovement.com, go get yourself the free guide. So if you want to take a look at some of these exercises, get a feel for our Recode program, which is being built into Recode 225 as we speak, you can get the Groundwork 101, our first regimen in our Recode program. You can get it for free on GoToMovement.com. You go on there, click Get Your Free Guides. You'll get a nice PDF that's going to be sent. There's no requirements to get the cert. Anybody can jump into it. Coaches, athletes, and parents. Yeah, it's highly encouraged for obviously coaches, but we have a ton of athletes and parents.
Got an open mind.
Yeah, anybody can sign up. Anybody can sign up.
$9.99, dude. You better jump on that price. And then, did you mention the affiliate?
No, that would be the next piece.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So basically, when you buy the certification for $9.99, you have the option to buy Recode 225 for a lifetime for $4.99. When you buy that, you get an affiliate code. So you make 30% of every price. So in other words, somebody goes in and buys a monthly package on Recode 225 off of your link. It's all customized to your name and all of that stuff. You get that link and you put it in your stories. You can get a QR code made or whatever. If they sign up, you make 30% of that initial sale and then 30% of every renewal that they do. You're locked in with that person.
Yep.
We've got coaches that have already made triple their money back in a couple of months.
Yep.
So
that's our best product. Our best product is with the Recode 225. You're basically, because we get people ask us like, is there a product where I can just have this stuff for life? Yes. There is a GOATAinstitute.com you can have for life, and Recode 225 you can have for life. So you can get that for $1,500. So $9.99 and $4.99, and you'll be set for life on both of those platforms. You'll be a certified coach, and you'll be able to, like Gary said, to use your affiliate, put it on a QR code, put it on a business card, take it wherever you want. We have our coaches do a lot of seminars, workshops where they'll kind of, go into a space, they'll explain the global laws, then they'll drum up some business off of that. And then that gets you a chance to have this app in your back pocket for when people do want to work with you and you want to play fast. So that's our basic, probably grand bundle, if you will, of getting lifetime access to what we have. But like I said, it's 50% off your first purchase on Recode 225, and Institute, affiliate. I think we hammered everything. I'll get this thing up, and these IG lives, for anybody that's new, will always be on our YouTube channel. So I think it's at GOATA Movement or GLS GOATA. You'll see these IG lives littered inside of, and they're all time stamped, so you can kind of go through and maybe, speed up and pick a hot topic that you may want to tune into. So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to do these IG lives. We'll be doing one. We may have to skip. Would it be next week? Yeah. We may have to skip.
We got the certification, so we may not have one next week.
We may not have one next week.
We might just jump up on there. And
we could do Wednesday.
Because we could always put it on the YouTube channel if we do it one night at the house or something like that.
Sure. So. Well, just stay tuned. Stay tuned for next week.
And remember, too, we got the podcast up on Recoded, the podcast. Y'all can go follow that. That's on Recoded with Gary Scheffler. It's got its own channel, and Training Forward Foundation. We got some things we're trying to do for some of the kids in the area and stuff. So we're trying to get that up and developed a little bit better. Because, we got a lot of kids in the area that just don't have anything. They don't, and a lot of them are really good athletes. So about fashion training. But man, listen, send us that into the inbox, and we'll try to we'll get to that next time or whatever. But all right, Rick.
Yep, I'll talk to you. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Later.